Welcome to Dos Amigos en a Pickup.
Hey, what about me? I'm the one doing all the work over here.
Dos Amigos!
Three guys garage.
All right.
All right, today, as you can see, it's all about turbos. We're gonna make a lot more boost. We've got an F250 Superduty. We're gonna make a lot more torque today and a little power. Maybe even some fuel economy.
Power! All right, you ready for some diesel action? Clint Cannon from ATS Diesel, Birdman, diesel expert, Brian Fuller, diesel driver. Okay, now we got the original turbo out, and what we're gonna do is upgrade some of the components in here. Clint's brought us a bag of goodies to make this thing not only more powerful, better fuel economy, and just tighten it up.
Yeah, and we've got an 02 F250. It's got 150K miles on it. Now, the structure of the engine is just breaking in. Diesels are built tough. They'll go forever. But a lot of the peripherals, some of those start to have some problems. And that's where Clint can help us kind of upgrade as well as do a lot of maintenance and fix some of these problematic areas.
Well, first what we're going to do is we're going to remove the factory turbo. We're going to replace it with the Aurora 3000 system, which is a new pedestal, which the turbo mounts on, a new turbo, a 4-inch downpipe, the intake system. And in the meantime, we're going to talk about a few of these things that we're getting rid of that are actually problematic with the vehicles. The up pipes have been redesigned so we have bellows, so we get rid of the little gaskets that are inside of it. That's a one-piece design that goes all the way down. And then the pedestal itself, which you're seeing here, allows the turbo to actually mount onto it, and that's replaced with a cast iron version that you'll see here in a little bit.
Nice. Now that leakage there, I mean, on a gasoline engine, naturally aspirated, a little exhaust leak, that's a little annoying. Eventually maybe it gets loud enough, you gotta fix it. But on a boosted engine like a turbo, you know, that's the energy that's driving the turbine, driving the compressor, making all the power. So if you're leaking just a small amount, you're dropping pressure, dropping temperature, and it makes a big effect on the efficiency of that turbo and making that boost.
Right, you want to make sure all that wasted energy from the engine is actually going past the turbine wheel, and when it spins the turbine wheel, it makes you more boost and you get more energy out of it.
Yeah, it's like slipping a compressor on a supercharger. It's not going to make the boost. You know, it's the same kind of idea.
Yeah, we could just show them on the original here. Here's the inlet. So there's your inlet, and then you can show them here's where that pedestal mounts.
Yeah, so this mounts on that aluminum piece, you know, and this is the oil inlet, the oil feed for the shaft that runs through. You've got a, you know, turbine blade and a compressor blade. Well, they've got to get lubricated, and here's your drain. So that goes back down to that pedestal there.
All right, so at that point, ready to get dirty. I think you guys are gonna show them on the bench all the new pieces that are going in, and I get to get in here and start wrenching.
Okay. All right, we got our old turbo here, and you can see the shiny new turbo here. Now, first thing you might notice is we're spinning opposite directions. So this one's clockwise, and this one's counterclockwise. Now, industry standard is pretty much around clockwise. So going to a design like this, you're gonna get a lot more options for, you know, different configurations where, you know, if we were to base off something like this, it's a little bit more of a one-off, right?
Yeah, one of the things you get with a clockwise rotation turbo is a lot of versatility. This particular turbo, the Aurora 3000, we can offer this in a 4000 and a 5. So those that are looking for bigger performance with the same turbo kit can just bolt on a bigger turbo.
Cool.
That's one of the things you get with this. The other thing you get with the correct rotation turbo is fitment. Fitment is a really big deal. When you want to install that turbo and make sure the downpipe clears and the uppipe's clear and the intake clears, that's a pretty big deal. So you want to start with something that actually gives you some good versatility.
And one thing people don't always realize is how you enter and exit the turbo can make a big difference on its performance.
Absolutely, and something you'll see here is the 4-inch intake versus the 2.5-inch intake. That's a big deal when you're trying to get air into the turbo to relieve that stress on it. And as you're talking about air size, or the size of the intake and the discharge, the 4-inch discharge obviously is going to flow better than a little 3-inch discharge.
And this essentially, it's kind of getting to be your choke point as you make more and more power, more airflow. You know, trying to feed through this back portion is where you're going to start to basically choke off.
Right, and mentioning choking off, when you talk about that flapper valve, that's a real common piece that actually melts in this turbo and creates a problem.
Yeah, you know, I can see where a melting flap in there might not be such a good thing for trying to run your engine.
Might slow you down just a little bit. Then talk about fitment. This is the pedestal that the turbo actually fits on. So this pedestal mounts to the engine, the turbo fits on it. Now we've removed, this is the factory pedestal, and this is what the factory turbo would fit on, and your oil actuator that leaks a lot. So we've kind of gotten rid of all that and built something out of iron that actually allows everything to fit on it.
That's a lot more solid base. I mean, you've got a pretty big mass just kind of almost flopping around on that aluminum piece. This is a pretty solid stainless and iron piece.
Yep, when it's all cast and made out of some good material, then it doesn't float around. And then the last thing, and this is probably the biggest problem with the 7.3 Ford, and you know, a lot of pretty much all the diesels, they generate so much heat in the turbine side that it just melts components and material moves around. Of course, this pipe is expanding and going in and out. And this is your factory piece, and you kind of see what happens. In fact, we just pulled this off. And that's exactly how it came apart. So that exhaust gas energy is driving through here, and it's just leaking. So you'll see this leakage pretty much with a factory piece within about 10,000 miles.
Yeah, I mean, this is literally, it comes unbolted like this. This is the exhaust manifold side. I mean, this part is just wiggly wobbly in there because the gaskets in there just burnt up and smashed.
Right, so when you replace it with a nice design that fits together and it has bolts, and then you have the gasket that fits between them, then all of a sudden you have something that doesn't leak, and your expansion takes place in the stainless steel braid, so the pipe just moves around, and you don't have to worry about this thing failing in another 30 to 150, 200,000 miles.
Yeah, it's nice because you've got an OE. I mean, this is a stainless beaded gasket. This is a quality piece, and that bead has, you know, basically elasticity to it. So it's not going to get smashed and then just leak. It'll be resilient over time as things move around, but you've also taken care of that with the flex joint, because all that, you know, those hot metal parts, they're expanding and they're moving in all different directions. So you're giving it a place to go. It's kind of neat.
Yeah, it's really overlooked how much this stuff really moves around. When you're idling, you know, say you're 400 degrees and you're pulling a trailer, you're 1,600 degrees. That stuff really moves around a lot, and that's where you get the failure points like you're seeing here.
Yeah, well, we're running out of time here. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to show you a cutaway, the inner workings, the technology of how a turbocharger works.
This segment of Two Guys Garage is brought to you by Waterloo Industries, storage and organization. Experience life uncluttered.
Hey, welcome back. As promised, we're back with our turbo, our cutaway. We're going to walk through some of the technology, and the best guy you could have to help, this is Clint from ATS Diesel. So we've got our cutaway here. We're going to walk you through, you know, some of the ins and outs, which is exactly what a turbo does, is it has stuff going in all directions.
This happens to be the 3000 turbo, which is really our most popular one, but it's easy to understand. Everything in the red here is really the driven section of the turbo. That's where the exhaust gas energy comes up those Y pipes, drives into the turbine section. This turbine section, you can see how this one's smaller than this one. The scroll wraps around, it diverts air directly, or exhaust gas energy directly into the turbine wheel. And as you drive air into that turbine wheel, it spins the compressor wheel. It's mechanically attached, and this compressor wheel spins, which is the purple section, and it drives air into the engine.
Right, so we've got, you know, hot gas, and you can see the section area. Well, as we get smaller and smaller, the velocity is getting higher and higher, and that's what's putting energy into that turbine wheel. Well, this is where all the energy is to drive the compressor side, like you said. I mean, it's a mechanical linkage. So it's important to size this correctly. So if you think about a boat prop, you know, you put the wrong prop on there, you might cavitate. You'll never get out of the hole.
Right.
You know, but you might have a top speed that's great. Or you can go the other way around. You got a prop that really digs in hard, but you might go half the speed. So this is setting up your potential energy on what you can do to drive this, right? So
that's correct.
Once this is set, now your energy is correct. Now you can start pushing on the other side and compressing that air.
And when you design a turbo, you want to really start with the turbine section. Make sure that turbine section is big enough to support the mass airflow of that motor. And once you get that determined, then you can hang a compressor wheel and a turbine wheel big enough so it doesn't get into that surge.
Right.
Now talk about, you know, the prop analogy is fantastic. Anybody that's ever driven a boat and hit some choppy water or whatever, you hear that thing really rev. That's something that the 7.3 in general has a real problem with. And that's why we corrected that by adding this inducer bleed here. If you look at the factory compressor, you see this little inducer like we talked about, and compared to this 4-inch.
Right.
Well, what we've added.
Big that is, but you've got extra passages and things that are going on.
Right, so if you look at this inducer right here, it allows this wheel to act about 20% bigger than it is. Right. So when you start out, the air starts in the smaller section, and then the wheel speeds up, and you see these vanes that are actually different sizes. These vanes, the air actually starts to go into the inducer, and it makes that wheel much bigger. And again, with the 7.3, when they surge a lot, you'll hear it with higher altitude, or if you ever put a chip into it, then the 7.3, you'll be driving and it starts to make this sound, and that's the turbo essentially trying to blow up, and that is probably the #1 failure on the 7.3 turbo.
Yeah, you really are essentially cavitating. So your blade cavitates, and then it catches, and it builds boost, and then it cavitates again, and so it's going back and forth. So that's why that match is so important. Well, you talked about getting a lot more airflow for the same size wheel. There's mass in here. Now you're spinning this up to 150, 160,000?
We'll spin it to 140 to 160,000 RPM.
160,000 RPM that guy's spinning. So you can imagine anything in mass here to try to get it to spool up. it's going to take time. So if I can have a smaller wheel and get more airflow through it, all the better for that spool up time. And you can see this one here, it's about similar looking size, but this is a 9-blade, now I've got a 14-blade.
Yep, and you also have the staggered vane design, so your tall vane and your smaller vane, one drops the mass, but it allows that turbo to act, or the compressor wheel to act bigger.
Right.
So it does exactly that. It decreases spool up time. So from a stop sign, you accelerate, that turbo gets up to speed quicker. And then the overall design of it gives you more mid-range and much less back pressure on the high side. So that means that you're going to have lower EGTs when you're pulling your trailer.
Yeah, you can just look at the blade. I mean, this is a huge advancement in aerodynamics into the wheel design. It's giving you a whole lot more turbo for a whole lot less, right? You don't need something this big that really loses out all the bottom end. You get everything.
Yeah, and you said it right. You know, the big thing we have to deal with here, or that we get the benefit from today, is technology. You know, we're talking about 10, 20 years of technology on an older truck, just a leap, and everybody gets to kind of experience that whole thing because the technology's here today and everybody's keeping their trucks.
Yeah, that makes it a whole lot more fun. So we're out of time. Stick around. We'll be back with some more.
This segment of Two Guys Garage is brought to you by Satisfied Brake Products, North America's leading independent manufacturer of friction technologies. Look to Satisfied for all of your stopping needs.
Welcome back. All right, we got our ATS diesel turbo going in. And I have to get some accessibility here. My lovely assistant will hand me the Y-pipe / pedestal. Turbo is gonna mount to this. Slide that in.
Yeah, we got our ATS turbo system going in. You know, sometimes you just have to dive into your work.
Okay.
Probably need a pillow there.
Just need some bolts.
All right, got a couple fasteners.
All right, got the turbo in, got the intake tube coming across, PCV valve. Now it's time for the arc flow.
Arc flow, this is allows the air to go into the engine. This is the exit tube for the turbocharger. Nice 3.5-inch intake that discharges the air out of the turbo through the intercooler. Big point of contention with any V8 engine is how air actually enters each bank. One thing you want to do is make sure they go evenly, so we put a flat in it, and that flat takes a little bit of time to divert that air to the other side of the bank, so each one is even. Then of course fit and finish is real important. You want to have all their sensors feed in. This is your factory intake air heater. Then this is your IAT sensor. And of course it all fits right inside, and new boots come with it. So the boots plug right in with new clamps, and you don't have to worry about the older style hoses blowing off.
Yeah.
And of course oil soak. So it's all complete in the kit.
Yeah, those look a lot better in factory. All right, let's get this in. We'll keep moving. All right, here comes the old intercooler. Oh, there you go. How about that?
Nice. You think that came out of that truck? It's pretty
It
small.
doesn't look like. You must have sent the wrong intercooler.
All right, let's get rid of this thing.
All right,
This is
now
what we're
obviously
looking at.
it's a lot bigger.
It's definitely a lot bigger. We've got staggered tanks on it. You know why we
Okay.
do that?
No.
Get the airflow down to the bottom. If you look at this other design that just came out of it, the plastic tanks, they blow up. It doesn't allow the air to really flow. So the air comes in out of the big turbocharger we just installed.
Yep.
It spreads out. Get rid of the choke point through here. It allows it to really evenly flow across the intercooler into the other side. You don't have to worry about things breaking with the mounting tabs being
Yep.
all aluminum.
Yeah, it looks
and
good and
obviously
sturdy.
the size of it, just overall thickness.
Sure.
So lift up on that bad boy.
Okay.
Got some material in it.
Yeah, that thing's huge. Now, obviously, if you're going to upgrade your turbo, you're bringing in a lot more air. You're going to need to flow a lot more air through here because it's all pressurized. You take that little plastic guy and you start choking it down. You know, it needs to be a full system from head to toe.
And the biggest thing about the intercooler, for every degree that you drop the intake temperatures, you drop your exhaust gas temperatures by 1.5 degrees.
Right.
So big improvement for
yeah.
little money spent.
Sure. You
And it
see any
fits
of
right
those?
in.
Actually, when I was out at your place, they were doing the tow trucks with the tractor pulls.
Yeah.
And they had these huge intercoolers on the front. I mean, monstrous, 2,000 pounds of torque, pouring it out. So,
Yeah, filled with water.
Absolutely. All right, speaking of systems, we get back, we got a full load of stuff, goodies. They're gonna also come out of ATS stable, so stay tuned.
Hey, welcome to this week's Ask the Host. Got a good question from Joe B. For start, great show, love to watch. Thanks, Joe. My question is about ignition coils. I've got a 1999 Ford SVT Cobra, and I've added a Pro Charger. Very cool. It's fallen on its face when it's under load. Is there a way to check the coils to see if they're bad? Well, check your indicator light, your mill light, check your trouble code, see if one coil might be misfiring. You can check that one real easy. Where the spark plug goes in the boot and the B positive, make sure you got about 5,000 to 6,000 ohms. If all the coils check out fine, you're probably overloading them. When you supercharge, you push a lot more air and your fuel in, it makes it a lot harder to jump the gap on your spark plug. So you may want to try reducing the gap to about 25 thousandths of an inch, see if that helps you out. Now if it doesn't, you're going to have to upgrade your coils. You're putting a lot more load on them. So give that a try, see how it works for you. So keep writing in, it's a great question, we'll keep answering them.
Welcome back. We're still here with Clint from ATS. Now we've upgraded the turbo system. Now we got some more power. Now this truck is about 150,000 miles. So right about that time, we want to start looking at transmissions, torque converter, rear end.
Yeah, and anytime you're going to go out there and really beat on it, you're going to haul and you're going to put a lot of load on it. Especially if you're going to upgrade power and performance, you really need to go address a lot of the rest of the truck too. Now transmissions, we all know, eventually they wear out. You beat on them, they get abuse. What have you guys done here in the Big Barney special to kind of help us out?
One of the first things you want to look at is really getting this thing, getting it supported properly. So that's why you put the big pan on it. That keeps the case from tweaking and flexing and causing clutches to slip. The other thing you look at is the torque converter. The factory converters are good for generally in the 500 foot-pound range, or 70, 80,000 miles to be in a slow slip, and that's what generates the heat, wipes out the tranny. So we've redesigned the tranny and the torque converter. They all come with a 5-year, 500,000 mile warranty, but more so, it's actually designed to really shift properly so you don't get real hard shifts. It doesn't slip, it holds the power. The bearings are all Torrington bearing. The clutches are formulated so they actually don't drop material and cause issues in the valve body. Sticking valves is another one of those high mileage things that just creates a lot of failures over time. So having the two together give you a package that just really will stand up to the abuse.
Nice, and then you can do some torque converter matching depending on maybe what you're doing with the turbo system?
Generally that's one of the nice things about the 5-star torque converter is it's one torque converter fits all. That's mainly because of the technology in the 5-star. You have the viscous drive along with the fluid coupling. So they kind of fit together so you don't have all these multiple stall speeds and confusion. It's pretty much one torque converter tranny package does the job for all of it.
Now moving on to the diff. This baby's going to hold a lot more oil. You get a lot of heat back there when you're towing, pulling loads, and what an amazing idea, a drain plug. Oh,
yeah, it's a whole lot easier when you're servicing. You're not having that thing spilling all over you. And when it's that kind of a pain, you don't really want to do it. So it's a nice way to get the job done easy.
Cool looking piece too.
Yeah, that kind of helps the end user get under there and change that fluid once a year like they should. And stay on top of the integrals, and not to mention that it's a pretty piece when you're driving down the road.
No doubt. Well, thanks for coming down, Clint.
Pleasure.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for the technology, the advice, and a little bit of that sweat equity.
See you in the break room.
Great.
For more information about anything you've seen on today's show, check out speedtv.com or visit TwoGuysGarage.com. This tip is brought to you by LMC Truck.
When you want to give your truck a muscle car look, add a cowl induction hood from LMC Truck. This steel hood comes primed, ready to paint, and bolts up to your factory hinges and latch. This hood fits any Chevy GMC truck from 1981 to 1987. When installing a new hood, be sure to add the hood insulator to the underneath side of the hood to reduce engine compartment noise. It's easy to install. Simply cut the insulator to the size you need and use the push-on retainers to secure in place. This tip is brought to you by LMC Truck. With over 30,000 truck parts in stock, you can get the right part at the right price right now.
Welcome to the break room. First thing we got up is from K&N Engineering. This is their K&N high flow intake system. Now this unit itself, this is from a 09 or 10 GM truck family, the Silverados, the Tahoes, the Suburbans. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, so this kit's going to cover a lot of territory. And in those vehicles, you've got the 4.8, 5.3, the 6.0, and the 6.2 engines. Now, you put this on a 6.2, they measure up to 17 horsepower, which is a great gain, just from getting nice flow. You're going to pick up a little fuel economy. There's less restriction on the engine. 5.3 liter motor, they picked up 10 horse. So great way to keep your engine nice and clean. also pick up a little performance.
Great thing about these too is they're a lifetime filter. They're actually 100,000 miles before you need to service them. You can reuse them, re-oil them, clean them. They've got a 1,000,000-mile warranty, which we're never going to use, and they're a piece of cake to put in. So it's a really great product from K&N Engineering, their high-flow intake system.
All right, Brian, nice hot summer day. You're cruising in your truck. You're trying to reach over and crack that window open. Spill your coffee, drop your Danish on the floor.
Drive off the road. No,
Bad.
don't do that.
There's no reason.
No. Go to LMC Truck, get yourself a power window kit. These are easy to put in. They come with all the instructions. They've got all the color-coded wires. They're a piece of cake. You can actually use the button on one side and not only run your window, you can run the other guy's window.
Yeah, so
Crazy.
now you can cruise around, your cup of coffee, buzz that window up and down. Now, LMC Truck has great upgrades for your truck for all the 40s and up. You know, Ford and GM stuff, almost all the late model, you know, Dodge truck stuff. So just about anything you can think of for your truck to upgrade, fix, or repair, LMC Truck has got it. You can get free catalogs, give them a shout. You got lots of stuff in there to
A
go
lot of
shopping.
fun stuff in there. Whew. Now, speaking of stuff, I've got a
time
little
to
something.
graduate.
I got a little something in the drawer here for you.
Yep, we are graduating from the tube. Now we've got the ultimate dispenser for RTV and making gaskets.
Oh, so nice. Now this is from Loctite, and this is RTV, and the beautiful thing about it is that normally, you know, you get stuff all over you. I'm a really messy guy. I don't know if you can tell.
think about it, you're trying to squeeze out of the tube.
Now
it's
watch
all
this.
wrinkled up.
Look how perfect that is. Oh, perfect bead all the way down the can. And you know, you can use this instead of a lot of the cut gaskets, and it's gonna really seal nice. It's the same material as a lot of OEMs are using to seal their stuff. So if you can't go out and get the new gasket, or if you just want a good solid way to seal something up like a valve cover, a timing cover, oil pan, something like that, that's a beautiful thing.
So one-hand use, there's no mess. You know, your gasket's not gonna split or crack like the cork stuff. So great way to seal your stuff. Do it quick and easy, do the job right. That's from Loctite, it's their instant gasket sealer.
We're out, dude. That's it.
All right.
Thanks for watching.